What's up, everybody? Welcome back. And here we go again. Listen, here's the first truth that the mainstream dances around because it makes sponsors nervous. When you have an overwhelming military control, your excuses get smaller and your responsibility gets bigger. Not morally bigger, legally and causally bigger. If you can choose where, when, and how violence is applied, then you own the outcomes. So on February 15th of 2026, airstrikes in Gaza reportedly killed at least 11 to 12 Palestinians, including people sheltering in a tent encampment. The Star of Remphan says it was responding to ceasefire violations. Hamas says it was a massacre and a major breach of the truce. If civilians are present, you don't get to pretend that they aren't. If your chosen method predictably kills civilians, you don't get to call it precision and wash your hands. If you keep doing it, it stops becoming collateral, right? It becomes a pattern. And that's the part that people hate because it forces a choice. Either you're incompetent at protecting civilians or you're willing to accept their deaths as an operating cost. So let's talk about the ceasefire violation line that they're spouting. Because this is where the narrative gets packaged. Just like your nice little Honey Nut Cheerios breakfast. Does Hamas violate truces? Sure it does. Do militants move in tunnels? Yep. And does Israel have the right to defend itself from attacks? Absolutely. But none of that magically deletes the next sentence, which the mainstream also loves to skip. And that is that the law of war does not give you a civilian killing coupon just because your enemy is bad. If your justification is that they crossed a line or that they emerged armed, then prove the target, prove the necessity, prove the proportionality, and prove the precautions. Because the outcome being reported is dead civilians. And spare me the whole, but Hamas uses human shields, autopilot response. And even if that claim is true in specific instances, it doesn't logically follow that the other side is therefore entitled to strike in ways that predictably kill civilians anyway. That's not logic. That's just vengeance wearing a three-piece suit. And here's another truth that people choke on. The humanitarian disaster is not an accident of nature. The UN has described Gaza's situation as mass displacement with severe shortages in shelter, food, medical service. That's not a hurricane. What that is policy. It's siege dynamics and the consequences of sustained warfare in a sealed space. And hell, while we're here, let's just speak plain. When you bomb, displace, restrict, and grind down a population that is largely trapped, you are not fighting terror in a nice little box. You are reshaping a society through force. Call it what you want. The victims don't get softer because your press release says infrastructure. The Star of Remphan's messaging depends on treating Palestinian civilians' death as background noise. The proof is not a vibe. The proof is repetition. We regret civilian harm, paired with the same operational results again and again. The words do not match the outcome. Let me ask you this. If the roles were reversed and the Palestinians had the air power and the Remphans were dying in tents and shelters, would the world accept they violated the truce as a sufficient explanation? No. And you know it. Which means the acceptance is not about principles. It's about power, alliances, and who gets humanized on camera. And on another tangent, accountability is the missing ingredient on purpose. Because accountability will require independent verification, transparent investigations, and consequences for civilian harm. And nobody with leverage wants that because it would box in their future options. And also, this whole peace plan circus doesn't change the core reality. Even with ceasefire frameworks and big conferences, reports still are describing ongoing strikes and deaths with both sides blaming each other. So if someone tells you we're entering a new era, but the bodies keep stacking, that's not a new era. That's a new slogan. Let me make this painfully clear so nobody can accuse this of sloppy thinking. Condemning Hamas for October 7 and for taking hostages is consistent. Condemning Israel for reportedly producing civilian death in Gaza is also consistent. But the other side defense is what people use when they don't want standards. Standards don't change depending on which flag is on the bomb. Every civilian killed is a factory for future hatred. So even if you don't care about morality, which some governments don't, it is still strategically stupid to keep feeding the cycle and calling it security. If you keep killing civilians to punish or deter militants, you are not ending terrorism. You're manufacturing it. Unless you destroy the whole damn lot. And the mainstream media won't say it like that because it sounds too much like responsibility. That's all I have for today. God bless you all. Would sure like to see some subscribers. We're bringing truth, man. 100%. Christ is King. Later, Gators.